The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed like shattered glass under the relentless drizzle, and Elias Harper stood frozen in the doorway of the little coffee shop on Pike Street, watching Rowan Kane laugh with someone who wasn't him. The stranger's hand lingered too long on Roe's arm, a casual touch that sliced through Eli like a switchblade, and in that instant, he knew had always been the ghost in his own love story. Roe's eyes, those stormy grays that once pulled Eli under like the Puget Sound, flicked past him without a spark of recognition, as if 9 years had evaporated into the steam rising from a forgotten espresso. Eli turned away before the tears could betray him, the bell above the door jingling like a mocking farewell as he stepped into the downpour. His boots splashed through puddles that mirrored the city's jagged skyline, the Space Needle piercing the clouds like a needle through his heart. He walked without direction, the weight of his soaked jacket pulling at his shoulders, until he found himself at the edge of Lake Union, where the houseboats bobbed like forgotten dreams. That was their spot, Rose and his once, back when Seattle felt like a secret they'd stolen from the world. He sank onto a weathered bench, the wood groaning under him, and let the rain wash over his face. 9 years. It started in a haze of college parties at the University of Washington, where Eli, fresh-faced and wide-eyed at 20, had spilled his latte across Roe's sneakers in a cramped dorm kitchen. Roe, already a senior with that effortless cool of someone who'd grown up chasing waves in California before fleeing to the Evergreen State, had just grinned, those dimples carving paths through his stubble. Clumsy type, huh? Good thing I like my coffee black and my apologies sweet. From there, it snowballed. Late-night study sessions turned into tangled sheets in Roe's off-campus apartment overlooking the Ship Canal. Eli, the kid from a fractured family in Spokane, found in Roe a anchor never known he needed. Roe, with his easy charm and hidden scars from a father who called him weak for every tear shed over boys instead of girls, saw in Eli a mirror to his own quiet rebellion. They built a life in fits and starts. The coffee shop, Bean and Fog, bought with Roe's inheritance and Ellis' relentless hours behind the counter. Mornings of grinding beans and stolen kisses, evenings of craft beers on the balcony, watching ferries slice through the water like promises. But promises erode. Somewhere between the grind of daily shifts and the ache of unspoken wants, Eli became the rhythm Roe could set his watch by. The guy who remembered how Roe took his pour-over, 2 sugars, no cream. The one who fixed the espresso machine at dawn without complaint. The lover who slipped into bed at midnight, curling against Roe's back like a habit, not a hunger. Eli told himself it was enough, that love wasn't fireworks forever, but embers that warmed the bones. Until tonight, when Head come early from his poetry slam at the Hugo House, buzzing with the applause for his piece on Fractured Horizons, only to find Roe in the back office, lips locked with Jake, the new barista with tattoos snaking up his arms like secrets Eli could never compete with. The betrayal wasn't the kiss. It was the indifference after, the way Roe smoothed his shirt and said, "Eli, it's not. You're overreacting." As if Ellis' heart were a spilled cup to mop up. Overreacting. The word clawed at him now, echoing with the lap of waves against the dock. He pulled out his phone, fingers trembling as he typed a text he knew Head never send. "I thought I was your harbor. Turns out I'm just the tide you wait out." By the time Eli dragged himself home to their Queen and Roe house, the Victorian bones creaking under ivy like old regrets, Roe was already there, sprawled on the couch with a beer, the TV flickering some mindless cop drama. "You're late," Roe said, not looking up. "Saved you some tie." Eli stood in the doorway, dripping onto the hardwood, his chest heaving with words he couldn't form. "I saw you. With Jake." Roe's head snapped up, his face paling under the lamp's soft glow. "Eli, babe, it's nothing. He's just... We were talking inventory and it got weird. He's got this energy, you know? But you're the one I come home to." The words landed like rain on parched earth. Too little, too late. Eli felt the fracture widen, a chasm opening between the man Head loved and the stranger justifying a stolen moment. "Talking, right?" He laughed, a hollow sound that bounced off the exposed brick walls. 9 years, Roe, and I'm the punchline to your bad day. Ro stood, crossing the room in 2 strides, his hands reaching for Ella's arms. Hey, don't do this. You're my constant. The one who makes this city feel like home. His voice cracked, that vulnerability Eli had fallen for flickering like a faulty bulb. But Eli pulled away, the touch burning now, a reminder of all the nights Head ignored the growing distance. I need air, Eli muttered, grabbing his keys from the hook by the door, the one shaped like a ship's wheel, a relic from their first trip to the San Juans. He didn't wait for Ro's protest, slamming the door behind him, the echo chasing him down the stairs. The streets of Queen and twisted like veins under street lamps, carrying him toward the pulse of downtown. He ended up at a dive bar on First Avenue, the kind with sticky floors and jukebox tunes that wailed about lost loves. 2 whiskeys in, and the bartender, a grizzled vet named Cal with a rainbow pin on his vest, slid him a napkin. Rough night, kid? Spill it. Secrets are cheaper than shots here. Eli traced the napkin's edge, the words tumbling out like confessions in a dimly lit booth. Cal listened, nodding at the right silences, his eyes kind but knowing. Sounds like you've been carrying the load for both of you. Ever think about dropping it? The question hung there, heavier than the rain outside. By closing time, Eli had a plan half-formed, whiskey-fueled, but pulsing with the clarity of a man who'd stared into the abyss too long. Head leave, not in a blaze of glory, but quietly, like fog rolling off the sound. Pack his notebooks, his favorite flannel, the guitar Head barely touched since Rose Band days fizzled. Head east, maybe to that writer's residency in Maine Head applied to on a whim, Haven Point with its salty winds and empty beaches. A place to rewrite himself, without the shadow of what used to be. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving as Eli slipped back into the house, Ro snoring softly on the couch, an empty bottle at his feet. Eli moved like a thief in his own life, stuffing a duffel with essentials. Jeans worn soft at the knees, the leather journal Ro had gifted him on their 5th anniversary, inscribed with "To my muse, forever." He paused at the bedroom door, Ro's profile etched in the half-light, and felt the magnetic pull of muscle memory. But he turned away, zipping the bag with finality. A note on the kitchen counter, scrawled in his looping script, Rowan, I can't be the echo anymore. Find your mornings without me. Eli. He called an Uber to the Greyhound station, the driver chatting about the Mariners game as if normalcy could stitch wounds. The bus to Portland hummed to life, Seattle shrinking in the rearview, a city of emerald spires and hidden heartbreaks. Eli pressed his forehead to the cool window, watching the Olympics rise like guardians in the distance. Freedom tasted like salt and regret, but for the first time in years it was his alone. In Haven Point, Maine, the air was crisp with pine and ocean brine, a far cry from Seattle's perpetual mist. The residency house perched on a bluff overlooking the Atlantic, its clapboard siding weathered silver, windows rattling with each gust. Eli arrived with salt-stiff clothes and a hollow belly, greeted by Mira, the director, a wiry woman in her 50s with silver streaks in her braid and eyes that saw through facades. Room 3, top floor. Views to die for or live by depending on the day. His room was sparse. A single bed with a quilt patched from old sails, a desk scarred by countless pens, a rocker facing the sea. Eli unpacked methodically, placing his journal by the lamp, the pages already filling with fragments from the bus ride poems of unraveling, of loving too quietly. Downstairs, the communal kitchen buzzed with the low hum of other writers. Lena from Brooklyn, scribbling urban fantasies. Theo, a quiet poet from New Orleans with ink-stained fingers and a laugh like thunder. That first dinner, over clam chowder steaming in pottery bowls, Eli felt the edges of his grief soften. Faye's shared stories around the scarred oak table, the fire crackling in the hearth. Theo leaned in, his voice a drawl warmed by bayou roots. What brings you to this edge of the world, Elias? Eli stirred his soup, the spoon clinking like a distant bell. A man who forgot I was his world. The words hung, simple and stark, drawing nods from the circle. No pity, just the quiet solidarity of souls who'd all chased ghosts across maps. Nights blurred into rhythms of salt air and solitude. Eli wrote feverishly, words pouring like the tide. Verses on the ache of being seen as scenery, on the bravery of boarding a bus alone. Mornings, head walked the rocky shore, picking up sea glass smoothed by waves, pocketing shards of green and blue like talismans. Haven Point was a balm, its lighthouse beam sweeping the dark like forgiveness. 2 weeks in, a letter arrived, forwarded from Seattle. Ro's handwriting, jagged and urgent. Eli, the shop feels empty without your laugh in the mornings. Jake was a mistake, a weak moment. Come back. We can fix this. You're not an echo, you're my everything. Eli burned it in the fireplace that night, watching flames devour the ink, the smoke curling like unspoken replies. Fix this. As if love were a leaky faucet, not a foundation cracked by neglect. Back in Seattle, Ro stared at the note on the counter, the words blurring through unshed tears. The shop opened late that day, the espresso machine silent, customers drifting away with half-hearted to-go cups. Jake quit the next morning, mumbling apologies, but Ro barely heard him. He drove the familiar loops. Queen and Hills, the locks where seals barked like laughter, Gas Works Park where they'd picnicked under kites. Everywhere echoed with Eli empty spaces where had been. Ro called mutual friends, the ones who'd teased them as the old married couple. He's gone dark, Lena said from her gallery in Capitol Hill. Give him space, Ro. You pushed too far. Pushed. The word stung, truth wrapped in thorns. Ro remembered the early days. Ellis poetry readings, how heads sit in the back, mesmerized, then drag him home for slow dances in the kitchen to Coltrane. When did it fade? When Bean and Fog became the beast that devoured their hours. When Ro's ambition for a second location pulled him away, leaving Eli to hold the fort alone. He started small gestures, foolish in their lateness. Brewing Ellis' favorite pour-over, leaving voicemails that cracked with vulnerability. I see it now, the way I let you fade into the background. Like you were scenery in my life, not the goddamn landscape. Come back, Eli. Let me show you. But the silence stretched, weeks turning to a month. Ro found solace in unlikely places. AA meetings at a church in Ballard, where Head admit the hollowness wasn't just loss, but the realization Head been running from his own queerness, from the boy who'd hidden crushes in surf magazines. Eli had been his brave mirror, the one who'd marched in Seattle's pride with signs held high, while Ro hung back, afraid of the shadows his father cast even from the grave. One rainy afternoon, Ro closed the shop early and drove to the airport, booking a one-way to Portland, then renting a car north to Maine. The landscape shifted. Evergreens giving way to hardwoods aflame in autumn golds, the air sharpening with salt. Haven Point appeared like a postcard from regret, its single main street lined with lobster shacks and galleries, the residency house a sentinel on the bluff. He arrived at dusk, the lighthouse winking conspiratorially. Mira met him at the door, her arms crossed. He's writing, Rowan. Really writing. Don't shatter that. Ro nodded, throat tight. I just need to see him. Tell him he's not routine. He's the pulse I forgot I had. She led him to the porch, where Eli sat in the rocker, journal open on his lap, the sea a restless symphony below. Eli looked up, his hazel eyes widening, then narrowing with the war of want and wound. Ro, what the hell? Ro stepped forward, rain beating on his jacket like tears. I drove 3,000 miles to say you're wrong. You weren't routine. You were the air I breathed without noticing, until it was gone and I was gasping. His voice broke, hands trembling as he pulled a small box from his pocket. The guitar pick necklace Eli had made from driftwood, lost in a fight years ago. I found this, like I found myself without you. Eli stood slowly, the journal slipping to the boards. The distance between them hummed with possibility and pain, the waves crashing like applause for truths finally spoken. Eli's breath caught, the necklace dangling from Ro's fingers like a bridge over the chasm. The driftwood was smoothed by years of his touch. The silver wire he'd wrapped around it in a fever of young love now tarnished but unbroken. He reached out, not for the gift, but for Ro's hand, the calluses from grinding beans rough against his palm. "You drove here. For this. For you?" Ro whispered, stepping closer, the porch light casting long shadows that danced with the wind. "Every mile I saw us. The ferry rides, your head on my shoulder. The way you'd hum off-key to keep me awake on long shifts. I was blind, Eli. Let the shop, the routine, the fear. It all convinced me you were safe, so I stopped fighting for you." The confession hung between them, raw as the salt sting on Eli's cheeks from the sea spray. He wanted to rage, to hurl the necklace into the surf and watch it sink with their history. But anger was a luxury he'd shed in Haven Point, traded for verses that bled honesty. Instead, he pulled Ro inside, away from Myra's watchful eyes, leading him to the common room where the fire had died to embers. They sat on the threadbare rug, knees touching, the silence thick with unsaid apologies. Eli traced the necklace's curve, memories flooding. The night he'd crafted it on their balcony, Ro sketching logos for the shop by candlelight, the city lights twinkling like conspirators. "I left because I was drowning, Ro. In us. In being the one who remembered birthdays and fixed the leaks while you chased expansions that never came." Ro winced, rubbing his neck, the gesture Eli knew meant shame. "The second location. It was supposed to be our empire. Stability, after my dad cut me off for choosing this life. But I got lost in it, in proving I wasn't the failure," he said. "Jake was a distraction. A stupid grab at feeling alive again. Not because you weren't enough, but because I forgot how to feel at all." Eli's chest tightened, the old hurt flaring like a bruise pressed too hard. "You made me feel invisible, like our love was background noise to your big plans." He set the necklace down, the clink echoing. Theo's voice drifted from the kitchen, laughing with Lena over late-night tea, a reminder that life pulsed on without them. "And now, you show up with a relic and expect. What? A sequel?" Ro leaned forward, elbows on knees, his gray eyes stormy as the approaching squall. "No expectations, just truth. I've been going to meetings, Eli. Not just for the drinking, though yeah, that too, but for the hiding. The part of me that still hears my old man's voice calling me weak for loving a man. You were always stronger, marching in those parades, reading your poems about owning your skin. I leaned on that, took it for granted." The vulnerability cracked something in Eli, a fissure letting light through the grief. He remembered Ro's first pride, how he'd clung to Eli's hand like a lifeline, face pale under the rainbow flags, whispering, "This is us," out loud. That night, in a borrowed apartment off Capitol Hill, they'd made love with the windows open, cheers from the street mingling with their gasps, a declaration against the world. "I needed that strength from you too," Eli said softly, his voice threading through the quiet. "But you pulled away, built walls with work orders and late nights. I became the caretaker, not the partner." Ro nodded, tears tracking down his face, unashamed. "I know, and I'm here to tear them down, if you'll let me. Not to drag you back, but to sit in this one with you. Hear your words, feel your fire." They talked until the embers glowed cold, words weaving a fragile tapestry. The fights they'd glossed over, the dreams deferred, the quiet joys buried under routine. Theo poked his head in once, eyebrow raised, but Eli waved him off with a small smile, the first real one in weeks. When Ro finally stood, joints protesting the floor, Eli walked him to the door. "Stay the night," Eli said, surprising himself. "The couch in the lounge. We can. Start slow." Ro's relief was an exhale, like surf receding. He nodded, shedding his jacket, the scent of Seattle rain and coffee clinging to him like a signature. Morning broke with fog rolling in from the bay, muffling the gulls' cries. Eli woke to the clatter of pans, Theo already at breakfast, but it was Ro's voice murmuring thanks to Mira that pulled him downstairs. They ate in companionable quiet, blueberry muffins from the local bakery, coffee strong as regret. Ro listened as Eli read a new poem, one born of the residency. Lines about tides that carve canyons, loves that erode to reveal bone. "It's beautiful," Ro said, voice thick. "Like you." The days stretched into a tentative rhythm. Ro extended his stay, renting a cottage down the lane from Widow's Walk-In, a shingled relic with porches that sagged like old lovers. He worked remotely, managing the shop via frantic calls to his manager, Tessa, who'd stepped up with the ferocity of a guardian. Afternoons, he'd join Eli on walks along the bluff trail, where wild roses tangled with brambles, their thorns a metaphor neither voiced. One evening, as the sun dipped blood orange into the sea, they sat on a driftwood log, feet dangling over the foam. Ro pulled out his phone, cueing a playlist, their old one, from mixtape days. The National's Slow Burns, Bon Iver's Falsetto Aches. "Remember driving to Olympic National Park? You singing off-key to this, windows down, rainforest blurring by." Eli chuckled, the sound rusty but genuine. "You called me a dying cat, then pulled over to kiss me senseless." Ro's hand found his, tentative, then sure. "I'd do it again, every mile." The kiss, when it came, was salt-slow, tasting of forgiveness and fear. Eli's fingers threaded through Ro's hair, tugging just enough to elicit a gasp, the world narrowing to the crash of waves and the heat building between them. They broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed, the lighthouse beams sweeping over like benediction. But shadows lingered, that night, in the cottage's narrow bed. As Ro traced Eli's spine with reverent fingers, Eli whispered, "What if we rebuild and it crumbles again?" Ro stilled, his breath warm against Eli's neck. "Then we learn the blueprint better. Together. No more solos." Haven Point watched their mending with quiet grace. The way Ro volunteered at the community center, reading to kids with that storyteller's lilt he'd hidden for years. How Eli's poems grew bolder, shared at open mics in the village hall, voices in the crowd murmuring approval. Lena pulled Eli aside one afternoon, her city edge softened by sea air. "He's trying, Elias. But you, don't lose this you've found." Her words echoed as autumn deepened, leaves carpeting the paths in crimson and gold. Ro proposed a trial. Eli finished the residency, then returned to Seattle for a month, no pressures, just presence. "See if the city still fits us," he said, over lobster rolls at the Anchor, the pub's walls papered with faded photos of fishermen's halls. Eli agreed, the decision settling like ballast. But on the eve of his departure, a storm rolled in, Atlantic fury lashing the coast with winds that howled like banshees. Power flickered, the residency house groaning, and in the candlelit common room, stories flowed. Ghost tales of shipwrecks, loves lost to the deep. Ro arrived soaked, bearing wine and blankets, his presence a steady flame. As thunder rattled the panes, Eli pulled him close, their bodies aligning like puzzle pieces long separated. Lovemaking in the storm's roar was fierce, reclaiming. Nails raking backs, lips bruising, cries swallowed by the gale. Afterward, tangled in quilts, Eli murmured, "I missed this. Us electric." Ro kissed his temple. "Me too. And I'll fight like hell to keep it charged." The bus to Portland the next day was a blur of gray skies and goodbyes. Theo clapping Ro on the back with a wink. Mira pressing a jar of her raspberry jam into Eli's hands. "For the sweet and the sour," she said, eyes twinkling. Seattle greeted him with familiar drizzle. The airport's hum a siren call back to routine. Ro waited at baggage claim, holding a sign scrawled with "Welcome Home," muse and marker that bled from nerves. They drove in silence at first, hands linked over the console, the city unfolding like a well-worn book. Bean and fog smelled of cinnamon and fresh grounds, Tessa hugging Eli fierce before vanishing to the back. Customers trickled in, regulars nodding with knowing smiles. Mrs. Hargrove with her scone and sympathy, the tech bro who always ordered the same flat white. But it felt different, charged. Ro delegating shifts, carving time for walks in Discovery Park, where cedars whispered secrets. One night, over takeout pho in the row house, Ro slid a folder across the table, blueprints not for expansion but for balance. Closing Sundays, writers' nights for you here, open mics in the back room, and therapy together, for the cracks we both carry. Eli flipped the pages, heart swelling. You're serious, dead serious, because losing you taught me, life's not the grand gestures. It's the daily ones chosen. As winter crept in, snow dusting the sound like powdered sugar, they rebuilt brick by brick. Eli's chapbook took shape, poems of fracture and mend, dedicated simply, for R who learned to see. Ro hung his surfboard in the garage, trading boards for books, reading Eli's drafts aloud with that gravel voice that still unraveled him. But peace is fragile, tested by tempests. A call came mid-December. Ro's mother, from her assisted living in Sacramento, frail after a fall. She wants to meet you, Ro said, voice tight. Properly. Before. Well. Eli squeezed his hand. Road trip. The drive south was a ribbon of highway and healing, California sun thawing Seattle's chill. In the sterile room scented with antiseptic and roses, Mrs. Kane extended a veined hand. Heard you've been his anchor. Thank you. For loving my boy when I couldn't. Tears fell, forgiveness blooming unexpected. That night, in a motel off the I-5, they made love with the windows cracked to the desert wind, bodies a map of survival. Back home, the holidays glowed. A tree strung with sea glass ornaments, friends gathered for eggnog and toasts. Eli read from his book by the fire, Ro's eyes on him like spotlights, pride undimmed. Yet, in quiet moments, Eli wondered. Was this the end of unraveling, or just intermission? The necklace hung around his neck now, a talisman against doubt. And as the new year dawned, fireworks blooming over the skyline, Ro pulled him close on the balcony. No more routines without you in them, he vowed, lips brushing Eli's ear. Eli smiled into the night, believing, for the first time, in sequels. Spring unfurled in Seattle like a hesitant confession, cherry blossoms carpeting the U District sidewalks in pink confetti, the air humming with the promise of renewal. Eli's chapbook launch at Bean and Fog drew a crowd that spilled onto the patio. Friends from the residency, poets from open mics, even Jake, sober and sheepish, nursing a black coffee in the corner. Ro manned the espresso bar with a grin that didn't falter, though Eli caught the flicker of nerves in his eyes, the way his fingers drummed the counter like a suppressed tattoo. You nervous? Eli murmured, adjusting his collar in the back office mirror, the space still echoing with that night's ghost. Ro stepped behind him, hands steadying his shoulders, reflection merging in the glass. For you, always, but this you, it's your spotlight tonight. The reading began with Theo, flown in for the occasion, his New Orleans drawl wrapping the room in velvet as he recited odes to Bayou ghosts. Then Eli took the mic, the weight familiar now, his voice steady as he poured out Tides of Us. Stanzas of erosion and reclamation, lines that ended, we are not the wave, but the shore it kisses, scarred and standing. Applause thundered, warm as embrace, but it was Ro's gaze from the bar, raw, reverent, that anchored him. Afterward, in the crush of hugs and signings, Ro pulled him into a stolen corner, kissing him fierce amid stacks of books. Proud doesn't cover it. You're a force, Eli. The high lingered into the after-party at their row house, laughter echoing off brick walls, bottles clinking like toasts to survival. But as the night waned, guests drifting into Ubers, Eli found Ro on the balcony, staring at the city lights, a fresh beer untouched in his hand. Penny for him? Eli asked, sliding beside him, their thighs pressing in that easy intimacy rebuilt. Ro sighed, setting the bottle down. Mom called. The doctors. It's faster than they thought. Months, maybe. The words landed like a rogue wave, pulling the air from Eli's lungs. They'd known. The fall, the the scans, the quiet talks in Sacramento, but hearing it voiced cracked the fragile dam. Eli pulled Ro into his arms, holding tight as shoulders shook, silent sobs muffled against his shirt. "We'll go. Whatever you need." They drove south the next weekend, the I-5 a blurred vein through verdant valleys, Ro's playlist a mix of mournful folk and upbeat indie to stave off the silence. Mrs. Kane, Clara, now in the softening, waited in her garden room, wildflowers blooming defiant around her chair. She was frilier, cheekbones sharp under translucent skin, but her eyes sparked when they arrived. "Elias," she said, patting the seat beside her. "Tell me about that book. Rowan's been bragging like a peacock." Eli read aloud, voice weaving through the afternoon light, Clara's laughter frail but genuine at the wry twists. Ro watched from the doorway, arms crossed, a ghost of his father's hardness in his stance, until Clara beckoned him over, pressing his hand to hers. "You chose well, son. Love like that, it's the real inheritance." The words lingered on the drive home, a balm against the grief gnawing at Ro's edges. He pulled over at a rest stop near Eugene, the Willamette Valley stretching gold in the sunset, and they walked the paths hand in hand, wildflowers nodding like confidants. "She sees us," Ro said, voice rough. "After everything, my coming out, the years of distance, it's like absolution." Eli squeezed his fingers. "You deserve it. We all do." Back in Seattle, the shop became a sanctuary of sorts. Mornings of brewing with purpose, afternoons carving space for Ro to sketch. Not logos now, but charcoal portraits of Eli lost in thought, pages filling a notebook he'd hidden away. Eli dove deeper into writing, submitting pieces to lit mags, the rejection stinging less with each acceptance. Their therapy sessions, bi-weekly in a Belltown office overlooking the Sound, peeled layers. Ro unpacking the paternal wounds that made him armor up, Eli voicing the fear of invisibility born from a childhood of parental ghosts. Mom fleeing to Portland, Dad lost in bottles. One session, the therapist, Dr. Hale, a soft-spoken queer woman with tattoos of sonnets on her arms, leaned forward. "Betrayal isn't just the act, Rowan. It's the erosion before. How do you rebuild trust without walls?" Ro met Eli's eyes across the circle of chairs. "By showing up. Every day, no matter the storm." Eli nodded, the vow settling deep. That evening, they cooked together, Ro's gumbo recipe, a nod to his California roots twisted with Seattle seafood, steam rising like prayers, spices sharp on tongues. Over bowls at the kitchen island, Ro slid a key across the quartz. "Not for the shop, for the cabin, up in the Cascades. Ours if you want. A place to unplug, just us." Eli's fingers closed around it, metal warm from Ro's palm. "Yeah, I want." The cabin was a A-frame relic off Stevens Pass, pine walls scented with resin, a deck jutting over a creek that sang lullabies. They escaped their Memorial Day weekend. City shed like old skin, hiking trails where ferns unfurled like secrets. Mornings, Eli wrote by the window, words flowing freer in the quiet. Afternoons, Ro fished the stream, lines casting like hopes, evenings filled with bonfires and bodies entwined on the bearskin rug. But idols test foundations. A storm hit midweek, thunder rumbling through the peaks, power out for hours. In the lantern's glow, Ro's phone buzzed. Tessa, frantic. A pipe burst at the shop, inventory ruined, insurance a nightmare. Ro paced the cabin floor, voice rising in the call. "How bad? Christ, the roasts, the Ethiopian we just got in." He hung up, raking hands through his hair, the easy lines of relaxation etching back into tension. Eli watched from the rug, coffee mug cooling in his grip. "We'll handle it. Together." But Ro was already packing, keys jingling like accusations. "I can't leave it hanging. This is our lifeblood." "Our," Eli echoed, standing, the word a spark to dry tinder. "Or yours. The shop's always been the third wheel, Ro. Swallowing weekends, holidays, us." Ro froze, duffel half-zipped. "That's not fair." You knew what it meant when we started. And now, when it's drowning us again. Eli's voice cracked, old fears rising like bile. I won't be the one mopping up while you chase the next crisis. The argument escalated, words flung like hail. Ro accusing Eli of selfishness, of using the residency to escape. Eli countering with the tally of sacrificed dreams, the nights alone with takeout and silence. It ended with Ro slamming the door, truck roaring to life in the rain, taillights vanishing down the muddy drive. Eli sank to the floor, the creak's murmur mocking his sobs. He'd come back for this? The cycle spinning anew? He called Theo, voice muffled in the throw. It's unraveling again. What if I can't do the dance forever? Theo's drawl was steady lightning. Then change the steps, share. Love ain't a waltz. It's a storm you weather or walk from. Dawn brought clarity, sharp as the pass's air. Eli drove back alone, the cabin key heavy in his pocket. Seattle welcomed him with gray skies, the shop sign dark on a Sunday. Ro's promise kept, at least. He found Ro in the row house, unshaven, surrounded by repair estimates, eyes red-rimmed. Saw you left the truck, Ro said, voice small. Eli dropped his bag, crossing to him. I left the fight, not you. He knelt, taking the papers gently. We'll fix the shop, but not at the cost of us. Hire help, delegate, or it'll eat you alive, and me with it. Ro's hands trembled as he cupped Eli's face. I'm scared of losing the dream of failing you both. Then dream bigger. Include me. Eli kissed him, slow and sure, sealing the pact. They hired a plumber that week, Tessa promoted to co-manager with equity shares. Ro started painting again, abstracts of sea and storm sold at local galleries. Income easing the shop's burden. Eli's first publication arrived, a poem in the Atlantic, lines of their mending earning fan mail that humbled him. Summer solstice, they returned to the San Juans, ferry slicing the sound, Orcus breaching like omens. On Orcus Island, in a lighthouse keeper's cottage, they renewed vows unspoken. Rings exchanged anew, simple bands engraved with shore and wave, lovemaking on the widow's walk, stars wheeling overhead, bodies a testament to resilience. Clara's decline accelerated autumn's turn, leaves falling like farewells. They flew south in September, Eli holding Ro's hand through turbulence, the plane a steel bird carrying burdens. In her final days, Clara whispered to Eli, keep him brave. He forgets sometimes. Her passing was quiet, a sunset over the Sierras painting her room gold. At the memorial in a eucalyptus grove, Ro spoke, voice steady. She taught me love's not possession, it's release, and holding on when it counts. Grief wrapped them tight that winter, Seattle's rains a shroud. But in the dark, they found light. Therapy deepening, friends rallying with potlucks and playlists. Ro's portraits of Clara hung in the shop, a corner dedicated to her memory. Clara's brew, herbal teas for the soul. Eli's book tour beckoned spring, readings from Portland to Boston, Ro tagging along when he could, their love a portable hearth. In a Cambridge bookstore, amid Harvard's ivy, a fan asked, what's the heart of your work? Eli glanced at Ro in the front row. Rediscovery, of self, of us. Love as verb, not noun. Back home, as rhododendrons bloomed riotous, Ro proposed again. Not on bended knee, but over breakfast, syrup-sticky fingers linked. Marry me, Eli. Not for show, but for us. The routine we choose, every day. Tears pricked, joy sharp. Yes, 1,000 times. The wedding was small, summer solstice on a Puget beach. Theo officiating in drawl and dramatics. Lena string quartet from salvaged cans. Waves crashing chorus. Vows exchanged barefoot in sand. Rings catching sunset. Sealing I do with salt-kissed lips. But life's script twists. Months later, a letter from Clara's estate. The cabin in Tahoe willed to Ro for the son who found his sea. They drove their fall, aspens aflame, the lake a mirror to healing. In the cabin's loft, under rafters etched with hearts, Ro pulled Eli close. From routine to this. You saved me, you know? Eli smiled, tracing his jaw. We saved each other. Yet doubt's whisper lingered, a thread in the tapestry. As snow dusted the peaks, Eli penned a final poem. We are not mended whole, but beautifully scarred, proof of storms survived. The wedding band caught the Tahoe sunlight, a silver glint on Ro's finger as he chopped wood on the cabin's porch, axe bites rhythmic against the chill air. Eli watched from the rocker, journal balanced on knee, sketching not words but the curve of Ro's back straining under flannel. The way sweat beaded his temple despite the frost. It was a portrait of peace, hard one. The kind that made Eli's chest ache with gratitude and a sliver of terror. How easily it could slip. Penny, Ro called, stacking logs with a grunt, his breath clouding like secrets. Eli set the journal aside, standing to help, arms wrapping around Ro from behind, chin on shoulder. Just memorizing this. As here, before the world calls. The world did call, insistent as a Seattle siren. Eli's book had sparked interest, a follow-up deal from a small press in New York, tours extending to the East Coast. Ro's art, too, gained traction. A gallery in Pioneer Square wanted a solo show, tides and anchors, themes pulled from their story. Excitement buzzed, but so did the undercurrent of strain. Schedules clashing like cymbals, nights spent Skyping across time zones. They returned to Seattle layered in autumn's hush, the cabin a promise for holidays. Bean and Fog thrived under Tessa's iron hand, expansions shelved for sustainability. Pop-up events now, poetry nights drawing crowds that lingered past close. Eli emceed the first, his voice weaving through the steam, but afterward, in the office, Ro's kiss was distracted, phone buzzing with gallery proofs. Sorry, Ro muttered, silencing it. Deadlines. Eli nodded, swallowing the pang. We said no more thirds, remember? Ro's eyes softened, pulling him close. You're first. Always. But the seed of doubt sprouted, quiet as moss. November brought rain and revelations. Eli flew to Boston for a reading at Harvard Square's indie shop, the Charles River glittering under street lamps like fractured promises. The event was electric, fans quoting lines, a professor inviting him to guest lecture. But loneliness crept in the hotel bar, whiskey burning as he scrolled Ro's feed. A selfie at the gallery install, dimples flashing amid paint-splattered chaos. A text pinged. Killed it tonight? Miss your voice in my ear. Eli replied, nailing it. Miss your arms. Home tomorrow. But tomorrow brought turbulence, delays stranding him overnight. Ro's call came late, voice slurred with exhaustion and maybe more. Tessa's out sick. Shows tomorrow. I might have had a drink. Eli's grip tightened on the receiver. 1, 2, 3. Fuck Eli, it's pressure. The critics, mom's shadow. Ro. We promised. The words were steel, honed from too many relapses skirted. Silence stretched, then Ro's exhale, ragged. I know. Cabling a ride now. Talk tomorrow. Clean tomorrow. Eli hung up, heart pounding, the hotel's anonymity a cold comfort. He walked the common till dawn, leaves crunching underfoot, penning furious verses on relapse's pull, love's tether fraying. Homecoming was tense. Airport hug stiff, drive silent save for wipers swish. At the row house, Ro unloaded. The show's make or break, and without mom, it's like proving to ghosts. Eli unpacked, folding shirts with precision. Prove to us. The living. He turned, eyes meeting. Or it'll break us. Ro deflated, sinking to the bed. I'm trying. But the pull, it's stronger some days. They called Dr. Hale that week, sessions doubling, unpacking the grief's underbelly. Clara's absence a void Ro filled with canvas and coping. Eli shared his own shadows, the residency's freedom a siren song, tempting escape when home felt heavy. I love you, he confessed, but I fear we'll routine again, stagnant. Hale nodded. Growth isn't linear. This waves ebb, flow. Commit to the surf. They did fiercely. Ro sponsoring a mentee at AA, meetings bookend by Eli's hand in his. Eli carving writing retreats, solo weekends at the cabin to recharge without resentment. Christmas came wrapped in resilience. Gifts practical and profound. Ro a leather-bound sketchpad for Eli's hybrid art. Eli a custom surfboard for Ro, etched with Ride the Wave. New Year's, they hosted friends on the beach, bonfire crackling, Theo toasting. To scars that shine, fireworks burst over the sound. Ro's lips on Eli's tasting of champagne and certainty. Winter thawed to spring, Eli's tour ramping. Chicago's windy readings, San Francisco's fog-shrouded slams. Ro's show opened to acclaim, tides and anchors selling out. Critics praising the raw queer heart. Pride Month dawned rainbow-drenched. Seattle's parade a riot of floats and feathers. They marched arm in arm, Ro's sign bold. Love's not routine, it's revolution. Eli's poem, performed on a stage amid confetti, ended with We march not from chains, but to claim the dawn. But revolutions simmer. July heatwave baked the city, air conditioners humming like omens. Eli returned from LA jet-lagged, to find Ro distant, studio door closed more than open. What's eating you? Eli asked over dinner, salmon flaking under forks. Ro pushed peas around his plate. An offer. Gallery in New York wants representation. Shows, travel big league. Eli's fork paused. And it's huge. But the shop, the life here. The unspoken loomed. Uproot or fracture. Eli set his napkin down. We built here. Roots, Ro. Not nomad dreams. Ro's jaw tightened. Roots can transplant. For growth. Or strangle. The argument brewed slow, then stormed. Eli accusing wanderlust of selfishness. Ro countering stagnation as fear. It peaked with slammed doors. Eli crashing at Theo's borrowed couch in Capitol Hill. The city's pulse mocking his isolation. Days blurred in stalemate. Texts curt, calls dodged. Eli poured into writing, a novella outline emerging. Driftwood Hearts, a queer odyssey of love's migrations. Ro threw into art, canvases slashed with blues of turmoil. Reconciliation came circuitous. A mutual friend, Lena, hosting a gallery crawl. Eli wandered in, drawn by tide's echoes, finding Ro amid admirers, his latest piece a diptych. One panel Eli's profile in sea glass light, the other empty shore, titled Waiting Wave. Ro spotted him, crossing the crowd, voice low. See it? Without you, it's barren. Eli touched the canvas, paint still tacky. Then don't let go. They talked till closing, wine loosening tongues, hurts aired like laundry. New York's not home without you, Ro admitted. But staying stagnant isn't either. Hybrid. Eli proposed, the word a lifeline. You take select shows. I tour smarter. Roots here, branches out. Ro's smile dawned, tentative. Deal. They sealed it in the alley behind the gallery. Rain sudden and sweet, bodies pressed against brick, kisses hungry as homecoming. Back at the row house, lovemaking was reclamation. Slow explorations, whispers of mine and ours, dawn finding them tangled, spent. August brought balance. Ro's first New York trip, Eli tagging for a reading, the city a whirlwind of subways and skyscrapers. They navigated Chelsea galleries, Eli's hand in Ro's as critics cooed. Nights in a walk-up overlooking the Hudson. Skyline a testament to expansion without loss. Fall harvest, they escaped to Haven Point. Myra's invite for a residency reunion, bonfire on the bluff. Theo regaled with tales. Lena flirted shamelessly with locals. But it was Eli and Ro, wrapped in a shared blanket, stars pricking the velvet sky, who felt the circle complete. You left here broken, Mira said later over cider. Returned whole. That's the magic. Not magic, Eli thought, work. The daily grind of choice. Winter whispered warnings anew. Clara's anniversary, grief's tide high. They marked it at the cabin. Tahoe's snow a hush, releasing lanterns over the lake, paper glows carrying goodbye, Mom. Ro sketched her likeness in frost on the window, Eli penning elegy beside. Spring 2026 bloomed defiant. Eli's novella accepted. Ro's agency signing dual city contracts. Pride again bolder. Ro leading a workshop on queer art as resistance. Eli's keynote on love's narratives. But summer tested. A storm, literal, hurricane remnants lashing the coast. Stranding Ro in NYC. Eli solo during a shop crisis. Floods ruining stock. Texts flew frantic, then frayed. Why can't you just come home? Because this is home too. Ro flew back soaked, argument reigniting in the airport lot. We're pulling apart. No stretching. Eli gripped the wheel. Like roots seeking light. Therapy salvaged it. Hale's wisdom. Boundaries, not barriers. Define the stretch. They did monthly check-ins, no-go zones for work talk post 8 p.m. Adventures mandatory, whale watches, where grays breached like breakthroughs. Anniversary dawned. 9 years since the latte spill. Ro blindfolded Eli, driving to Pike Place, unveiling a mural on the shop wall. Their silhouettes entwined, waves crashing, titled Routine Redefined. Eli traced the paint, tears hot. Perfect. That night, candles and Coltrane, bodies a symphony of then and now. Yet, as leaves turned, a whisper. Eli's agent dangled a fellowship in Berlin, 6 months, all expenses. Career maker, she said. Ro's eyes shadowed over dinner. Go, but come back. The choice loomed. Love's ledger balanced on a knife's edge. Berlin's autumn was a watercolor bleed of golds and grays. Spree River winding through cobblestones like veins of history. Eli arrived jet-lagged but alive. Fellowship apartment in Kreuzberg, a sunlit garret with views of graffiti-strewn walls, and the distant TV tower piercing clouds like a spire of ambition. His days filled with seminars at the American Academy. Voices from global queers dissecting identity in echoing halls. Nights at queer bars where U-Bahn rumbles synced with bass drops. Bodies swaying free under strobing lights. He wrote voraciously. Driftwood expanding into a novel, chapters emailed to Ro in installments, feedback looping back with annotations in red pen scans. This line guts me. More heat here? The distance sharpened words, made longing amuse. Video calls bridged oceans. Ro's face pixelated but dear. Shop bustle behind him like a soundtrack. Miss the rain, Eli said one night, propped on pillows, Berlin's midnight his Seattle noon. Ro grinned, flour dusted on his cheek from bread-baking hobby. Miss your flour-dusted cheek. Gallery wants a Berlin series. Come back inspired. Always. But the pull tugged both ways. Freedom's thrill in anonymous streets, where no one knew his scars. Home's gravity, Ro's voice anchor in the ether. October's chill deepened. Eli collaborating with a German poet, Lucas, tall, angular, with eyes like Baltic storms and a laugh that disarmed. Their workshop pieces intertwined. Eli's Pacific elegies meeting Lucas's Berlin wall fractures. Readings at a Prenzlauer Berg cafe drawing crowds that spilled into the alley. Your work breathes America, Lucas said over schnitzel. Raw, oceanic. What's the heart? Love across maps, Eli replied. Ro's latest email burning in his pocket. Dreamt of you last night. Wake me when you're home. Lucas nodded, clinking glasses. Maps change. Hearts too. The question lingered, innocent but insidious, as walks turned lingering. Tiergarten's leaves crunching underfoot. Debates on queer exile evolving to personal confessions. Lucas's coming out amid east-west divides. Eli's routine unraveling. No lines crossed, but the spark of connection, intellectual and electric, stirred unease. Eli confessed in therapy, virtual with Hale now. It's not betrayal. Vitality. Does that make me weak? Hale's voice crackled warm. Human. Share it with Rowan. Transparency's your tide. He did. Over a call fractured by lag. Met someone collaborator. Sparks ideas, not us. Rose's pause stretched, then softened. Good. You deserve sparks. Just keep one lit for me. Relief flooded, but so did resolve. Eli poured the energy into work, novel surging. Protagonists mirroring them, a barista and bard navigating betrayals and bridges. Thanksgiving abroad was solitary. Turkish kebabs in a Newcoln park, FaceTime feast with Roe and friends, turkey carved pixel by pixel. 6 weeks, Roe counted. Then Christmas in Tahoe, snow angels and sins. Eli laughed, ache sweet, promise. But December dawned dire. Roe's call at 3 a.m. Berlin time, voice hollow. Shop fire, electrical back room. Everything roasts, art, gone. Eli bolted upright, heart slamming. You okay? Tessa. Shaken. Insured, but it's Ash, Eli. A beat, then raw. Needed you. Guilt clawed, distance a chasm. Flying out. Fellowship be damned. No finish. This is your Berlin. But the plea undercut words. He stayed, torn, wiring funds, calls to insurers a barrage. Lucas noticed the pallor, offering walks along the Landwehr Canal, locks glinting like tears. Lost carved space for new, he said, hand brushing Eli's in solidarity. The touch lingered too long, a spark fanned by vulnerability. That night, in the garret, Eli kissed him. Impulse, wine loosened, a grasp at filling voids. It deepened, hands roaming, Lucas's mouth urgent with shared exile. But midway, Eli pulled back, breath ragged. Can't. Love someone. Across the sea. Lucas nodded, no anger, just understanding. Seas part for the brave. Eli confessed to Roe days later. Flight booked. Voice breaking over satellite delay. Kissed a guy. Stopped it. Stupid. Scared. Missed you so much it hurt. Silence, then Roe's exhale, cracked but steady. Hurt me too, but honest. That's us. A pause. Come home. We'll sort the ashes. Berlin's farewell was bittersweet. Final reading a triumph. Lucas toasting to loves that wander, homes that hold. Eli boarded the plane, waited with gifts. Glockner chocolate, a sketch of the spree for Roe. Regret a passenger in the empty seat. Seattle's winter greeted with sleet. Seattle-Tacoma, a blur of reunions. Roe waited, thinner, eyes shadowed, but arms open. The hug was bone crush, tears mingling. Missed your chaos, Roe murmured into hair. The drive revealed scars. Bean and Fogg's facade soot-streaked, yellow tape fluttering like flags of defeat. Inside, the air acrid, shelves bare, but community bloomed. Neighbors with brooms, Tessa coordinating rebuilds, murals sketched on plywood barriers. They crashed at the row house, bodies reconnecting slow. Showers shared, steam erasing miles, touches tentative then tender. Lovemaking was forgiveness, apologies whispered against skin. I'm sorry a mantra in gasps. Afterward, tangled, Roe traced Eli's ring. The kiss scares me, not the act, the distance that birthed it. Eli nodded, throat tight. Me too. Fellowship was wings, but home's the nest. Rebuild began communal. Pop-up at a friend's warehouse, coffees and thermoses, poetry slams by lantern light. Roe's insurance check funded Phoenix Rising, greener builds, solar panels a nod to futures. Eli shelved expansions, focusing on the novel, Berlin chapters infusing grit. Christmas in Tahoe was hearth and healing. Clara's cabin strung with lights, tree felled from the lot, ornaments of sea glass and surf wax. They baked gingerbread, shapes of anchors and waves. Roe's laugh thawing grief's frost. New Year's Eve, under stars sharp as diamonds, Roe pulled a box from the woodbox. A custom journal, leather-tooled with our story, unfinished. Berlin made you shine, he said, snowflakes catching in lashes. Don't dim for me. Eli kissed him, cold lips warming. Shine together. Winter waned. Shop reopening gala a triumph. Ribbon cut amid cheers. First pour over steaming symbolic. Eli emceed, toasting to routines reborn. But undercurrents swirled. Lucas's email, a collab invite for a Berlin anthology, innocent but echoing. Rose saw it over breakfast. Go if it calls. I'll hold the fort. Eli hesitated. Not without you. Spring bloomed collaborative. They jetted to Berlin together. Fellowship extended duo style. Lucas's welcome platonic. Workshop a bridge not barrier. Eli's novel sold to auction. Advanced dizzying. Rose series Exile Tides hung in a MIT gallery. Critics lauding transatlantic heart. Back stateside. Summer solstice wedding vow renewal on the beach. Barefoot again, waves lapping vows. Theo quipped, second act's sexier. Friends danced bonfire lit, love a constellation. But fall's harvest reaped tests. Novel deadline loomed, Rose NYC show clashing. Arguments flickered, priorities. But snuffed quick, therapy a bellows. Thanksgiving, expanded circle. Tessa's partner, Theo visiting, table groaning with thanks. Eli's book launch followed, Seattle's literati packing the shop. Rose portrait of him on the cover. Hazel eyes stormy, driftwood necklace gleaming. As snow dusted again, Eli penned epilogue drafts, heart full. Yet, a doctor's call to row, routine check, shadow on lung, precautionary but scan soon. Fear's chill settled. Love's warmth defiant. Whatever, Eli vowed, hand in hand at the clinic. We face it. No solos. Rose smiled, brave. Together's our best story. The clinic's waiting room hummed with fluorescent sterility. Magazines fanned like false reassurances. The tang of antiseptic clinging to clothes like doubt. Eli sat beside Ro, thigh pressed to thigh on vinyl chairs that squeaked with every shift. His hand enveloped in Rose, thumb tracing the wedding band like a rosary. The scan was precautionary. A spot on the lung from Clara's side, genetic whisper. But waiting amplified it to thunder. Each tick of the wall clock a hammer on fragile peace. Remember our first scan? Ro murmured, voice pitched low, attempting levity. Ultrasound at the shop, no, wait. That was the espresso machine after the quake. Eli huffed a laugh, tight but real, squeezing harder. You fixed it with duct tape and denial. Worked till it didn't. Ro turned, gray eyes steady despite the pallor. This'll be duct tape too. We're fixers, you and me. The doctor emerged, white coat crisp, face a mask of professional calm. Benign. Shadow from old infection, your mom's pneumonia, likely. Clean otherwise. Relief crashed, tidal. Hugs in the hall, tears hot on cheeks. Rose exhale a gale. They emerged into December's bite. Seattle's streets slick with promise. Driving home with windows cracked to the chill. Radio crooning carols off-key. That was too close, Eli said, finally, over cocoa steaming in the row house, fire crackling companion. Ro nodded, mug cradled. Clara's ghost playing pranks. But yeah, reminder, no more deferring dreams. The scare catalyzed. Resolutions etched in ink, not air. Ro shuttered the shop 2 days weekly for art intensives. Canvases blooming with post-Berlin fury. Queer seascape sold to collectors in LA. Eli's novel wrapped. Edits a dance of deletion and depth. Release slated for Pride 27. They traveled light. A February jaunt to New Orleans. Theo's wedding a Zydeco whirl. Ro sketching second lines. Eli penning jazz-infused interludes. Spring equinox, they hiked the Olympics, Ho rainforest to Emerald Cathedral, moss-draping trees like veils. At Sol Duc hot springs, steam rising from mineral pools, bodies submerged to chins. Ro whispered, marry me again, yearly, to keep it fresh. Eli splashed him, laughing. Greedy, but yes. Pride swelled record. Seattle streets a artery of color. There float a coffee cart replica, pouring lattes rainbow foamed. Eli keynote the lit fest, driftwood hearts excerpts drawing gasps. Ro's mural unveiling, Us Unbroken, spanned a block, crowds tracing lovers' outlines. Summer solstice renewal was intimate. Just them on the San Juan's bluff, fairies wake a isle, vows renewed to gulls chorus. I choose you, routine and riot, Eli said, ring sliding home. Fall's harvest was bountiful. Novel launch at the shop, cues snaking to the pier, Ro beaming prouder than publisher. Reviews poured acclaim. A queer odyssey of raw romance, Harper captures love's quiet revolutions. Book tours beckoned, but bounded. Europe duo, Asia skipped for balance. Tahoe Thanksgiving, cabin aglow, Theo and Lena joining, table tales weaving webs. Ro's lungs clear on checkup, Clara's star brighter in memory. Winter's hush brought quiet gifts. Eli's pregnancy, no, wait, the metaphor of creation. A joint project brewing. Graphic novel collab, Ro's art, Eli's words, tides of two souls. Sketches pinned the studio wall, nights brainstorming over wine, bodies following minds into dawn. New Year's, balcony perch, city fireworks abloom. Ro pulled Eli close. From spill to this, best plot twist. Eli smiled, hazel meeting gray. Unfinished. That's the beauty. Yet, epilogues hint at sequels. A call from Mira. Haven Point expanding residencies. Co-directorship for Eli. Ro's gallery eyeing Seattle branch. Choices loomed, but lighter dialogue not dictate. As snow melted to spring, they walked Pike Street, hand in hand, the shop's bell jingling welcome. Eli paused at the door, necklace glinting. Routine. Ro grinned, dimples deep. Our favorite revolution. And in the steam of pour-overs, the world waited open, endless.